Okay, so I wanted to do a video about Brazilian guitar playing, particularly Bossa Nova, which is a style we often come across as jazz musicians. I'm not an expert in Brazilian music, but most jazz guitarists have to get at least a little bit familiar with this style, and there are obviously people who are much more expert at it than I am. But having had a few lessons of people who are more expert, I feel I'm in a position to offer a little bit of advice on things that help me to play a little bit more stylistically. So in that kind of vein, I'll continue. If you notice anything I'm misrepresenting or anything you want to add to, if you do know more about this style, please add your comment below. There's always a feeling on YouTube that you're kind of giving a certain kind of authority, even though you're just a random person with a YouTube channel. So I don't want to sort of give that impression. And I feel my knowledge in this area is perhaps a little bit less than it is in American jazz, say. But I have had, really good teachers and workshops and so on. So hopefully this isn't completely inaccurate. Plus I love Brazilian music, I listen to it a lot, and I use my ears as best as I can to work out what's going on. Obviously nothing can replace immersion in that culture, and people who are really interested in Brazilian music go to Brazil and study there and immerse themselves in the culture of this music. And also, obviously, Bossa is just one tiny style within a whole range of different styles in Brazil. Brazil's a big country and it's got a rich musical heritage. So with that in mind, I'm just going to cover the basics of the technique. I'm kind of assuming that you already know this, because if you're watching this, then you need to get this together if you can't do it. Yeah? So, a sort of standard Bossa Nova pattern would be something like this. You see my thumb is taking alternating bass here. It's not always alternating, sometimes it's just repeated, and the fingers are playing this more complex rhythmic pattern, which is okay. So in context of how do we relate this to Brazilian music generally? I mean, Bossa Nova is a distillation of the rhythms of the Samba bateria, or drum orchestra. So we're interested really in two primary voices here. One is the tambourine, which is a small trebly drum played like this. You hold it like that and you go with the drumstick, and you sort of twist it as well. I watched some videos. I just Google tamborim with an M at the end and watch some videos of how they play it. Better still, we join a samba band and play tamborim and learn some basic patterns. The other instrument is suru, which is the bass voice. And there's actually two surus. The first suru, confusingly, plays on beat 2. So, bam, bam, bam. Suru 2 plays on beat 1. See, I get confused as well. So it's like swapsies around from what you expect. Suru 2 on beat 1, Suru 1 on beat 2. But the Suru 1, the second beat, is the most important drum, and it's the lowest drum. And that was the first Suru, and then the second Suru was added later, and then there's a third Suru which plays a more complex pattern, which was added even later. So when we play this alternating pattern, we're referencing the fact that the first Suru is lower, it's on beat 2. Play it like that with the second beat, and the second suru, on beat 1 is a higher pitched one and plays up here. So what kind of instrument? Let's focus on getting the bass right. Okay, first of all, so bong, sing, bong, ding, bong, ding, bong. To me, it has a little bit more of a samba feeling to it than ding, do, da, bong, bum, bong. So that's for two reasons. First of all, the suru is a sustaining instrument, and you play it in a very specific way. So almost as important as the drum stroke, in fact even more so perhaps, is the muting. So I'm playing the first suru part, I mute on beat 1, my hand comes down, stops the drum skin from ringing, and then I've got my stick ready, and I go boom on beat 2, oop, mute on beat 1, so it goes bomb, 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 like that, right? And that means that you want a really long sustained note, both suru parts, right? You want to try and let that bass note ring through. It doesn't have to be massively loud. In fact, it's probably best if it's not too loud, because slightly quieter notes sustain more. But you want that and not that, right? Okay. Second thing is the second beat can be slightly accented, or very accented, depending on what style or what tempo you're playing in. Now, if you're just repeating the bass note, like this, for instance, experiment with that accentuation as well. Bring it up and taking it down. So that's really important. Again, like nothing beats like just playing the instrument itself to get a feel for it, and you want to audiate the sound of that instrument when you play the guitar, because you're trying to get some of that sound in your guitar playing. So the rhythms that we play with the fingers are obviously more complex and more busy, and they can be very, very simple. I'm going to take the simplest Bossa pattern I know, which is the one from How Insensitive, and it sounds like this. Or you could just play it with a single bass note. A strings are all flat. So that was very legato the way I was playing it, but that's just do zoom zoom ga. So 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and different fingers, and obviously the bass is still that 2 pattern, do 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 do, whatever you want to play it. So even with this little simple pattern, you've got a few little variations you can do. Like you can sort of let that first note be a little shorter. Notice that I haven't got fantastic independence, so I'm having to cut that bass note a little bit short as well. That's fine. It's kind of okay, I think, as long as you let the second one ring. Also notice that I was doing a little ghost note there, which I tried to eliminate towards the end. So there's quite a lot of subtlety there. Now the next feature, which I want to, so I'm going 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E. That's quite on the grid. Whereas actually, if you let the E, the syncopation, the last note that I play, slightly late. A little bit more lilt into it. It's a good pattern to practice because there's very little to it, but that doesn't mean that it can't be played with style, and obviously João Gilberto plays exactly that pattern throughout the song, and Luís Bonfá plays that pattern as well. He adapts it a little bit later on, plays it with a slightly different emphasis, so comparing those two is really good. Gilberto is a master of making simple things sound absolutely amazing, so he's always a good one to listen to. Obviously we can have more complex tambourine patterns. I mean, there's that bossa pattern I was playing at the start, which is... which I think might be... adapted from one note samba, for instance. Now, an interesting thing about bossa patterns is when they're 2-bar patterns like this, often the first one starts with a push and anticipation. Most of the time, in fact, it's something I learned from a teacher called Bosco de Oliveras, who's... Okay, so if we go to some slightly more complex pattern, this is an example of the standard kind of samba-y, bossa-y pattern I would play, something like this. So here I'm playing. Now it leads with an upbeat. 1 E and da. Sorry, 2 E and da. 2 E and a 1. 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 2 E. That's all right. So a lot of Brazilian patterns do this. And it's kind of a little stylistic feature that can be confusing at first to the European or probably North American ear because you don't really hear the 1 necessarily. If I was to do this, so I started it off with just hitting that bass note on the beat 2, the first surdo part, and not playing the second surdo part. So you can hear it's a little bit like, oh, it's, where's the 1? And that's a delicious thing. I've been told that most Brazilian rhythms start with the kind of the syncopation, and then in the second bar they're on the beat. And for us with guitaristic considerations, that relates to how we change chords. So for instance, if I'm going to play so the chord kind of leads the bar because I'm playing the next chord or the chord of the next bar on the anticipation. This is exactly like jazz. If I'm playing a sort of swing rhythm, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I play an and. I'm going to play the chord from the next bar. I'm not going to play the chord from that bar. So with one note samba, for instance, so you'll notice that this is on the beat, so second bar. That's anticipated. So anticipation on the beat. Sorry, anticipation on the beat. Anticipation. So if I do that, you can hopefully hear my finger squeaks when I'm anticipating the beat. Right, so that's an important nuance to get. It gives the music a feeling of pressing ahead. Other things to bear in mind is like, you can play those notes a bit shorter. João Gilberto, for instance, is a very legato guitarist, but you can hear more modern players who kind of play a bit shorter. So that's another colour available to you. I think works particularly well at faster tempos. You can also play with 2 different pitches, or kind of a low and a high, to give you more of an agogo sort of effect, like the bell. So, for example, I could play Partido Alto, dun da dun dun da dun 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 da, which is like this on the guitar. Talk about the samba swing, and this is best practice using this device here. Samba is not straight, it's not straight 16ths like this. It has a lilt to it, so that's best done by moving your hand a little further back and then doing a big movement onto 1, small movement onto E, small movement onto and then a big movement back on A. So it looks like this when I put it together. So that's not really enough just to do that movement, but it gives you the basics. Again, I'd hold my hands up and say, my swing isn't necessarily great, but it's better than it was. And this has helped me a lot. Ideally, you want to play with, experienced samba musicians in baterias and get the feeling of that sort of unique 16th note flow that samba has. But that's the basic technique of how you learn that. And it's taught around the world to lots of different people. I think it's a common approach. So that's really important. Now, on the guitar, I think the first step is really to identify the quality of the upbeat, so the A. So 1 2 D 1 2 D 1 2 D 1 2 D 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 ba da do da do da do. It's almost a triplet, almost. It's certainly probably closer to that than 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1. You can hear how straight that is, how boring. So one way you can practice it on the guitar is you can get used to going boom gaga, boom gaga, boom gaga, boom gaga, 1, 2, 3, 1 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 and a, 2 and a, 1 drip, 2 drip. How we like to count it. That is the basic sort of 3. And then on the other hand we got boom gaga, boom gaga, boom gaga, boom gaga, which is 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a. So what I'm doing there is I'm just sort of exploring this guy called Malcolm Braff, who has a whole theory about rhythms, calls it morphing. And I'm not very good at it, but you know, like that's the start of being able to move from that da 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 da, moving between that 3 and that sort of very da 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 mathematical 16th note rhythm. Somewhere in the middle is a samba swing. Okay, and that's another way you can get into it. I think like the quality of the upbeat is like zangle, 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 zangle. Again, it's almost like, you know, drummers talk about, you know, gospel chops and Dillafield's. I think the Dillafield thing is separate from the gospel chops, but you know, that sort of 5 drunken sort of feeling, and a lot of them have sort of got it, you know, quantified down, so they play like groupings of 5 or 7 or whatever, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, and Samba's a little bit like that. You could try and quantify it like that, but actually it's kind of in the cracks. David Bruce does a whole video about this, and it's a pretty good one actually. It talks about how you know, how difficult it is to write things down like Samba and Gnawa, and how that annoys him as a composer. But of course, if you're not composing and don't have to write things down exactly, it doesn't bother us. It's just a matter of finding the feel, you know. Same with, you know, jazz swing or anything really. I think that's most of what I've got to say really. Yeah, hope you find it helpful. If you notice any mistakes in what I'm saying or have any comments or anything to add, please do so below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.